For those of you not here at MBA Annual, we'll talk through the agenda because it actually directly relates to Now, Next, Later and the things that we talk about here. So just hit us up in the chat on the Zoom with any questions. And I think I'll turn it over to Sasha for a quick observation. So as we thought about what to talk about live and in person, there was one glaring topic that just kept coming up over and over in the agendas and the conversations already in some of the meetings yesterday. And that was, shockingly, AI. So what was your first impression when you saw what is going to be on the agenda for today and tomorrow?
Yeah, and being a speaker here, you think I would have looked at the agenda a little sooner, but full transparency, I was taking a look at it last night, and I was really just a little bit shocked, if I'm being honest, because there's a lot of different tracks around market and security and risk and things of that nature, but everything else filled in between is AI driven. So whether it's how does AI and Java work together, building your own RAG bot, which I'm not even sure anyone knows what that is, to, how do I upskill my team for AI? It just seems to be like the buzzword right now, or the buzz, I guess, acronym, as it is 2 words technically. And so I thought today we should talk a little bit about AI, what I call ambition versus implementation. Because although I think we're seeing progress with AI as far as it being implemented, both in-house with lenders, but also tech vendors are certainly really hitting the gas on making sure that we're leveraging it. I do still find us to be a little bit behind the 8 ball. So I'm both inspired and also shocked by the fact that there is such a strong presence of AI on the agenda this week.
Robbie, we've always been, I think, a little behind in adoption of technology as an industry. So when it came to AI, the question really was, is this going to be a different experience for mortgage companies, for individual users? Because we've always kind of said, why aren't we adopting faster? Now AI comes and actually kind of forces the issue. I think Sasha's exactly right. You can't not talk about something. Like, I don't really care how sick people are of the phrase, and I'm sure they are, but it's actually so meaningful to the business. Do I think it needs to be 80% of the agenda? Probably not. But I think you can't avoid it for this adoption question, which is this going to be the thing that changes tech adoption across corporate America, across financial services, across mortgage? So
adoption specifically, are you wondering about
AI going to change the way people think about this as mortgage companies?
It has to. I mean, if we're putting 70% and more of our energy into it, I was going to say 70% seemed like that number should be higher, actually. It should be 85 or 90%. I'm sure you're going to get tired of talking about credit costs by the end of this conference. It's going to be AI. Or
I'm sorry. I've been asked by my lawyers to not answer any questions about credit cards.
That's why they brought me on this show, to say all the things that she's not allowed to do. Yeah. So it's inevitable. The fact that we're here, the fact that this is what's being discussed, that it's dominating everything. I'm not sure what else it would be. And I would say, good. I remember getting into the industry in the early 2010s, and it was the end-to-end digitization of mortgage. We talked about it, and it's still not fully adopted in some senses. It's finally like everybody's on the same page, so we all need to pull in a row. I don't know, whatever the phrase is.
Row in the same direction.
Row in the same direction. We're on the AI train. You're not on it. You're getting left behind. It's time to ride the wave. Don't let the wave pass you by. Whatever metaphor you want to use. We're there. There's no 2 ways around it.
I'll be really curious to see after the fact how many lenders go to the workshops, because there's a lot of labs and workshops where I think it's going to be more hands-on, so that you can start to get a feel for, if you're not already doing something, what does experimentation look like? How do I start to think about embedding that into my DNA, into my culture, into my strategy? So those who are on the call or at MBA, if you go to these workshops, would love to hear from you afterwards. Were they helpful? Did they drive us more towards a place of it being practical use case? Because I think that is still a little bit of the rub, is like, how do I make this practical for my business?
Are you going to now use a RAG bot when you weren't before? I'm going to that one. I'm going to that one to try to see how many people are there. But I think your point is well made. So with the key question, I want to see what you're hearing from lenders, because the key question I've been thinking about the last month or so is, how much do I as a mortgage company have to know about AI specifically?
Yeah.
Choosing tools, choosing what it's going to do, and how much can I rely on the platforms I've already bought, that I already subscribe to deliver that AI to me? A lot of what I think of when I think of likely adoption for AI for mortgage companies is the way Copilot runs behind the scenes, and people that use Microsoft products or the Microsoft suite just pick where and when they want Copilot involved.
Yeah.
And they sort of get it as part of their subscription. And I'm wondering if you think that these big platforms that lenders rely on, like the LOS, the point of sale, the CRM, they're going to be delivering the AI. And then the question will become like, do you have the right partner with the right AI that you need versus going out and getting it yourself, separate from all that stuff you've already spent money on? Is that conversation one that you've heard? Is that real? Where are we on that dynamic?
It's a great question. And we just had our fall client advisory board meeting, and our entire topic mostly was focused on AI. And so we had this exact conversation, and I think it's a blend. I do think lenders are looking at where does it make sense, just like anything else. Where do I buy? Where do I build? So where does it make sense for me to start thinking about AI embedded within, again, DNA, culture, strategy? What are simple things I can start to take on? Craig Ungaro is one of my favorite, in the industry, and he always says it best. Like, I have to stay focused on what we do best. We don't do tech best. We do mortgages best.
Mm-hmm.
So yes, you need to become more tech savvy because the world of mortgage is going to continue to digitize, to Robbie's point. We've been saying that word for so long. And you also need to find partners where it becomes more complex, and the models that you want to build that will actually effectively drive your business in the right direction are probably too complicated to be spending that much time on. And the lift by having the right partner is going to make it easier, faster, better for you, particularly because as a lender, especially if you're a fiduciary, you've got a lot of risk to be thinking about, and your compliance areas and change management in general. And so if you have someone taking that heavier lift on for you, then you can stay focused on making it work, making it right-sized for your business, and just do some of the lighter lift stuff yourself. So I think it's a hybrid.
Yeah, I think that's a great call. So Robbie, that brings up the question of, you're running a mortgage company. You just heard what Sasha said. Do you give tools to your individuals in the hopes that you will find how to become more efficient and save by making everybody a little bit better? Or do you really think about giving a tool, to use that phrase, to the platform because you actually need to change the way the technology works? How would you think about this question of like what people use versus my core tech?
I was reminded yesterday of the Bill Gates quote that said, "I will take a lazy person over a hardworking person any day because the lazy person will find a way to get things done."
Yeah.
And that's kind of where we are with technology. I dealt with this more from the capital markets side of, say, really top producer, and they want a certain product or they want a certain technological thing. Do you give it to them or do you give it to the entire team, sort of thing, if they're going to make good use out of it? I'm not sure.
Yeah,
what's right. I mean, you would think that I've heard both strategies here, whether it's let's boil the ocean and dive all the way in, or let's kind of segment it out and piecemeal it and figure how it's going to work best, and then have wider adoption from there. We're still in the nascent stages, and I'm sorry that I've given you a waffly answer here, but I think to each their own. Know your organization, know your strategy. What I was sitting here thinking and smiling about as we were talking about is, you're very theoretical. I'm very practical.
Mm-hmm.
You're like the perfect blend. It's good that you're in the middle.
Stuck in the middle.
No, but there's these 70% of the stuff is AI discussion, this and that. How do we move from this conjecture to making it implemented in the industry, to actually getting to the practical? That's kind of now, next, later. How do we go from the now to later? How do we get from the theoretical to the practical? And I think that's where we are in Vegas for this conference.
So that's a good segue as we kind of move into the next. And so one of the things I've been thinking a lot about, I have been kind of using Champagnozian as an example. Champagnozian, #1 loan originator for a couple years in a row, with rate, based in the metro Boston area, built out an entire team and an entire nationwide practice under his leadership. And so I think, Robbie, let's start there with a practical. I actually think that type of team, that type of process, here's how I do it, and I'm going to build my team to execute with my company's technology exactly the way I want to do it. And he actually became himself the size originator that many mortgage companies are by building it out that way. What I think is happening is that originator can do that now, maybe by themselves or very close to by themselves. And they'll still need their team in the loan origination fulfillment side, right? Sean didn't do that without rates LOS and PPE and closing system. But now instead of having to train everybody, throw people at the problem, do it this way, and kind of assembly line the way I was used to at Quicken, it's now I could actually scale different pieces that I know how I want to do it. I know I want it done my way. It may not be no people, but I think you can build out that size branch, that size production, that size mortgage company with far fewer people. You can't, nobody can start from scratch anymore, but that is probably the most practical, real disruption.
I'll disagree with you though.
Sure.
No, good, because I was going to.
Yeah, like I say, Sean, I think Sean's going to be successful in whatever he does. And so it kind of gets back to what you're asking. Do you build it for somebody that can be highly successful? Or do you take a highly successful person's processes? Or you kind of make it for the lowest common denominator, the LO that's doing two files, 3 files a month, and you want to bump them up to 6 or 7. Is that who you should build your processes for? If it's going to bring them up, and the successful people are inevitably going to be successful anyway.
I like that question because it definitely allows companies to have different approaches, and that's kind of what we need. We need different approaches with different strategies. So there's actually some differentiation in the market. I've been learning more about a company called Mova AI. And one of the reasons I want to use more names on the show, by the way, is just because I think that's what people want to hear. To the practical, is like, I can talk a lot about what technologies are out there, but people are like, well, who's doing that? Is that real? So this one listens to all your calls. So it's focused on the phone call between either a loan processor and a customer or the LO and the customer. And it call center, sure, but really all your calls, agents calling, members of your team calling consumers. Anyway, it takes the tips and tricks that the AI pulls from successful phone calls from your top producers and repurposes them to teach the underperformers how to act like the top performers, but just within your company. So you're not getting somebody else's culture, somebody else's workflow. You're actually having the best people without even asking them, right? You're not taxing them on their time. You're not asking them to train anybody. You're taking their calls and you're giving them to everybody else and say, this is what works. If you want to be successful at this company, do this and you'll rise. So I think there is a strategy, whether it's sales in the context I just said, or operations, to take, hey, what's working? Who did find the better way? Scale it quickly with AI as a practical first step or second step.
Or are you going to disagree with Mom?
I just think that, as much as I want us to progress and evolve as an industry, especially technologically, that the truth is we will always need different options. It is not a one size fits all market. It will not ever be a one size fits all market, and not all lender shops are going to be the Shants of the world. And so I think you have to have that differentiation. And then I think what's, from my vantage, most important is figuring out where does AI and tech fit in for you so that you don't become obsolete. So it might not be, full big bang approach, but it's also not, I'm just going to completely have none at all. Obviously, people have to have technology in their lives, but how do you start to incrementally add in a way that fits your lender operation and helps advance and accelerate what's needed? And helps you stay focused on what matters most. So that's just my disagreement was more around just different lenders, different sizes, different business models are going to need different tools.
I have a couple other thoughts on what AI can or can't do. And so one related to Zactus, I think, and your work. When we think about AI, we're talking a lot about the work, the tasks, but you're also talking about delivering data and delivering insights. And that is, I've been joking on the show that we're going to see the pendulum swing back because data science has somehow gone away in this AI boom. But now I think we're going to start to see AI kind of elevating data science. Can you talk a little bit about what's AI mean to the vendor, tech partner, data partner community? How are you seeing it impact? What is it doing in the credit world, if anything? Or are all of those policy discussions not tech discussions? What are you seeing?
That was a loaded question.
Yes, that's everything. Big ball.
Let's break it apart. Let's break it down. So first and foremost, I think that each tech company has a different strategy for AI based on what their offering is. And AI may or may not make sense as a light, medium, or heavy, depending on the company. If you are AI focused and that's what you're bringing to the table, like the Mova AI that you mentioned, then sure, it's probably going to be a heavier model. For those of us that are in the more historical products that have been around for as long as we've been originating loans, it's a little bit of a different story. And it goes back to, I will say this 1,000 times, our very first show on Now Next Later, where we were talking about data and the fact that there is so much data. And if you don't have an ability to pull it into a database, assimilate it, normalize it, and then start to become more intelligent from using it, it is just wasted data. And what we particularly see at Xactus is a lot of our lenders are leveraging data and therefore paying for data that you don't actually need because you don't have a system to tell you, hey, don't go that route. Don't pull data yet. It's not time. Or maybe pull some of the data, but not all of the data. And so for us, our AI strategy at the moment is really focused on how do we help reduce that data waste and support lenders in making more intelligent decisions on when is the right time for me to pull data that I'm going to pay for or pass on to the borrower. And particularly, unfortunately, in a world where costs in certain parts of closing are continuing to go up, I think now more than ever, injecting AI and helping bring down those costs where we have control is going to be really vital for lenders.
Can I say one thing about that? Because it used to be data, trash in, trash out, good data, good data. Are we, because this is the now, this is the next, this is the later.
Yeah.
Are we getting, when we get to later, are we getting to a point where AI will be able to smooth out data or pick out outliers and say, hey, that shouldn't be part of the data set, and it can actually learn what makes better data?
I think so. I think it's just one of those scenarios where until you teach the model what you believe is worth having in whatever scenario that you have versus it's not relevant, it won't know. Mm-hmm. So out of the gate, it's not going to have the context that we do as humans that have been working in mortgage for 10, 20, 15, 30 years, depending on, your time frame in the industry. So it needs the humans to say, hey, this is what I want you to look for. But once we train the models, absolutely, it's going to start picking up on things. And I think, scarily enough, it will figure it out faster than we can.
No, don't sleep on it.
Yes, it makes me a little nervous, but I do think that will be interesting. And then I think we have to start considering the topic of, okay, how do we upskill our staff, our resources across the entire ecosystem? It's not just lenders, it's even in our tech companies, to work with the AI so that we are feeding it the right information so it can help us down the right path and we're not losing the human factor. We all know that human touch is something you cannot replace. And if we ever do with AI, no offense, I don't want to be here to see it because I believe in human factor so much. So
that's why we're not
find that balance.
Avatars. We are actually doing the show for you every week. We could just load it up and make us. That's that's how you know we're here for you. Because I think actually you can sense it. I actually think you can feel that.
Yeah.
And the example I've been using is people go to restaurants in part because there's a actual story being told by the chef or the restaurant. They fix the space up the way they want. They want you to feel something when you walk in. They want you to feel something when you sit down. The food that comes out has had some really thoughtful preparation around here's why we made it this way and here's what we did. And so could you design robots to make food? Of course you could. Mm-hmm. I think people would be able to tell. I think if you put two spaces, put people in the Nathan Fielder version of the experiment, and I don't know why. I honestly don't. But I believe what Sasha's saying is, I think what Sasha's saying is how do we keep that fingerprints of your company, the fingerprints of your story, the fingerprints of whatever your strategy is on this stuff? The biggest mistake people make when we talk to lenders, the biggest mistake they make is trying to mimic somebody else, trying to see something across the street, hearing about something at the conference, and then going, we have to do that too.
Yes.
But then doing it the way that company did it because they have to, instead of saying we actually just need to go more into who we are, more fingerprints of ours on it, not mimic somebody else. You could still pick the tech they have, but use it your way. And I think that's what I'm trying to say.
I came here to just disagree with you today. Honestly, I think you're being naive. I think you're being naive.
That's why we've got.
I think you're being very naive.
Allow the mediator to keep things calm, and we're gonna.
I think that right now we're in a time where I can tell when someone's written a ChatGPT email, or I can tell by the verbiage. Forget the M dashes, just ways that
I love dashes. Okay, I was using them before ChatGPT existed.
So at this point we can tell. And if you were to have a robot chef versus a Bobby Flay, you could tell which one was the robot chef. But I think you're naive for not thinking that it will rapidly progress to a level where it's more empathetic or it has flaws and imperfections. Look, and I'm not advocating for that necessarily. I'm going through a remodel right now, there are imperfections all over my house. And I say it's an imperfect house for an imperfect man. I don't need it to be perfect.
Despite the tuxedo. Keep going.
Well, there's a stain here. We got a little side pen actually. A little side pen in the pocket. Here we go.
Wait, where's the robot?
That's the best thing you can bring to a client. Anyways, the thought of I want things to be perfect. I think AI, at this point, it's faking empathy. It's going to learn over time little ways.
Real empathy.
Like more sentiency, as if that's the proper word. Like, I just think right now you're correct that people can tell when it's AI. I don't think we're going to be in that phase very long. I think it's moving so quickly.
All right. So, go ahead.
I was say I missed a little bit of a rabbit hole, so I'll say it quickly and then we'll move on. But what makes me nervous is we've raised the last couple of generations with an iPad in their hand, with technology of all sorts in their hand. And they've lost the ability to look you in the eyes and be empathetic. And if technology becomes more empathetic than humans, we're in trouble. And so I do think, though I appreciate your perspective and yours as the woman in the middle, we have to find a balance, and we have to strike that balance, because there's a place for technology and there's a place for humans.
Yeah, one of the things that I'll bring it back to the practicality that you were asking for, that I think goes to your point, which is we have a lot we haven't solved in the mortgage industry and in housing, if you mortgage as a piece of housing finance. And so I keep thinking through why we're so hesitant when all I hear about is, how do I turn this on? How do I have growth? How do I have new products? How do I have new investors? We have all these folks that if we are, I think you said training up or leveling up, why we're not going to get better, and we should get better at the things we're not good at today. We're not good at condos. We're not good at renovation. As a finance or a physical, practical thing in the world, we're not good at fix and flip. I think there is, and construction as an underlying category for many of those, I think that is areas where if I'm running a mortgage company today, I'm trying to think of, great, if I can get some of these other things done that don't need to be done with my culture, my strategy, my fingerprints on them, because they are tasks underlying a traditional 30-year fixed mortgage, how am I doing the next thing? How am I getting good at these things that I don't think a ton of companies are good at, frankly? You know that one, you hear about that one company who does condos really well. You hear about two companies that do like renovation really well. Everybody else wants to. And that's where we need to go. And that's pretty low hanging fruit overall. So then if you're going into the later, if we can do that, and then we can do that, really what could we be doing?
Sure.
We've never tied together the digital experience from start to finish. We've never had these handoffs work smoothly between real estate and mortgage and title and insurance and servicing. Those handoffs are still really tough. And so I think there's a huge opportunity before anybody at this conference, anybody watching at home has to worry about like what I'm going to do next. Think about all of those spots that your company wishes you were good at and isn't, that we could be if we follow Sasha's advice.
But is AI the solution to those handoffs in your mind? Or are we putting the cart before the horse by having all these discussions about AI when it's like, you should be focused on doing a condo right? You've been trying to do it for 15 years and you still can't do it. Like, are we putting the cart before the horse, or is AI going to make it where?
So from a practical perspective, what I heard Sasha say was, we know that AI can do a bunch of stuff people don't want to do, but we don't want it to do everything. Because we already know it can't yet today. You said it might actually do everything. And once it reaches full human empathy and it can do, quote unquote, everything, I still think it's going to do everything of today's world, not the next thing. So our job is to just move slightly ahead of AI and keep delegating it work that we've solved and we've fixed. So those handoffs are a perfect example. Those handoffs are actually about what that digital consumer feels when it pops up to say, here's where you're at. And here's who these people are. And we have some technologies here at the conference, you'll see them, where they let you kind of build your team and you see little thumbnails of, this is my agent, this is my LO, this is my title person. That's about as far as we've gotten on the connectivity here. So what I'm saying is that's what AI is going to help do. Smooth over those rough patches of, here's where you're at, here's what you have to do next. Here's why these people are working on your file at the same time, and give people a sense of confidence. Like, oh, okay, I don't feel handed off anymore. I feel unified across my home buying experience, or whatever it is.
I think thematically, not to be the Debbie Downer, But, we still have to find a way, and I don't know, other than a call to action or a rally cry here, how we get to a point where we slow down to speed up.
Mhm.
There's just so much change constantly, and we can't control all of it, but we do have an ability to at least ask for, from a policy standpoint, like, unless it's absolutely necessary and we're avoiding risk or harm to a borrower, let's take a beat, because we're asking lenders to consume so much change just with the way that consumer life works in general. Then you ask them to take on all these different changes because vendors are providing all these different options and they've got to choose, what do I build? What do I buy? And then you're asking them, get better at condos because you never knew how to do it to begin with. Well, but policies are changing around condos. And so then that makes it more complicated. So we just have this ever evolving complex like thing of rubber bands tied around each other. And I guess my one ask would be, where we can simplify for the industry, let's do that, because less is more right now. In order for you to do something well, you can't do 50 things at once. It will dilute your effectiveness. So figuring out yet again how to take in all the information, but then take a moment, take a beat, and consider what's best for my business, right? What are the 1 or 2 things next year that will help me advance my business in the right direction? And how do I effectively implement those? Because if I try to ingest 50 different changes at once, while all the things are going on in the background I can't control that are going to hit me no matter what, you're going to fail unless you happen to be the size of a rocket and have all the resources in the world, which we all know we don't.
Yeah, that's a great point. It makes me think of that special forces phrase that they use. Slow is smooth and smooth is fast.
Exactly.
So if you go like that is the whole idea of slowing down. It's not to slow down, it's to go smoothly.
Exactly.
And when things are going smoothly, they actually go really fast.
They do go fast.
Yeah, I think that change management is something that also comes up on almost all of our episodes.
Yes.
And maybe this is a good time to mention, this is a little bit of a celebration because we've been on for more than a year. We waited to be together here in Vegas. We've got our host here, and so we're celebrating. We're here in Vegas celebrating. We've got come on.
The guy in the tux has got to open the bottle.
Dude, look at you.
Right? I mean,
So we'll try to spray it around the room.
We're also celebrating the industry, spending time with people here. So thank you as always for watching Now Next Later. We'll continue on Mondays to show this, to come to you live. And then we record it, we put it on YouTube. You're starting to see it, hopefully, if you're on Instagram, if you're on social media, you'll see our shorts out there. We always connect with you on LinkedIn. So thank you for joining us live, as always. And we're gonna keep coming at you.
Not feral like that.
And we'll be back next week with more Now Next Later. Thank you for joining us. Thank you, Sasha. Thanks, Robbie.
Yeah, take care, everyone.
Take care.